DNA Flash midsole? Yes, please. And thank you, Brooks. Hey guys, Paul Ronto here from RunRepeat, and today we're going to check out the Brooks Hyperion Elite 2. But first off, you might notice some new surroundings here. We're in the studio today. We're shooting inside because there's a huge forest fire here in my neck of the woods in northern Colorado, and it's raining ash. The sky is this crazy orange color. The sun isn't really out, so sorry if the B-roll shot looks a little funky. Fire! What can we do? But I mean, it's just a crazy apocalyptic doomsday type of scenario happening here. Anyway, let's get back to the shoe. That's what's most important. Brooks Hyperion Elite 2. This is Brooks's pro race day shoe. This is not a training shoe. It's not the Hyperion Tempo. It's not the launch. This is the shoe you bring out specifically on race day to be a little bit more efficient and shave some time off your run. This is super responsive, super stiff. It's got a carbon plate. I'm super excited to be getting this shoe. Carbon plates are the big fad right now. It's fun to run in, it's squishy, it's bouncy, it's responsive. Let's talk a little bit more about it though, in detail. Initial impressions. Day one, I went out 10-mile effort, super fun, super springy, super soft. I love the carbon plate feel. It's not as springy as I expected, which I actually think is a good thing. It's a little more controlled, it's a little more stable. You know, it's not as springy as the Nike, maybe as the Saucony. And I think that is a benefit of this shoe. I like that. Overall, I think this shoe has been fun to run in these first few efforts, and I'm excited to see what it can do in the future. Let's talk about updates. This shoe is the second version of the Hyperion Elite, and they've made some major changes, but the main change is the midsole. Brooks went from the DNA Zero to the DNA Flash midsole. That's a huge upgrade. The DNA Zero midsole really got a bad rap. It got nicknamed the brick. It was dense, it was heavy, it was a little too stiff. This one livens this shoe up a bit. It's soft, it's responsive, it's a little bit more durable. This shoe is gonna get 200, 300 miles, whereas the previous version, you were lucky to maybe get 50, 75 miles. So this midsole really is a major upgrade. Brooks also added 2 millimeters of stack to this to add a little bit more cushioning. They heard their customer. The customer said the midsole was too stiff and too harsh. They made this one softer, they made this one better. The last thing that they updated is the rocker on this shoe. So this shoe has a lot of rocker to it. It really likes to get you up there on those toes. I think it's a great upgrade as well. Overall, a few great upgrades. Let's break this shoe down and talk about each one in detail. Let's start with the likes. First, the upper. This is a mechanical stretch woven upper. It's a little different than your engineered mesh upper. It's not as flexible, it's not as forgiving. It really doesn't stretch as much as you would think, but it's the same upper that they had on the one. There was no problems with it. They kept it. I think that's a good decision. It's really thin. It's a race upper. There's no hot spots. The seams are really flat. It's plenty breathable with all these breathability holes on the top. I think that they've done a good job keeping this upper the same. I always like to talk about the tongues on these shoes. This tongue, super simple, super thin, just some mesh and some welded overlays. No seams, it's super comfortable on the top. It's not gusseted. I know I've complained about that in the past, but it's okay. It's thin and it stays where it's supposed to be. I like that it's not over padded. It doesn't add any extra weight where you don't need it. Let's talk about the heel counter. This is great. I've had no heel slip on this shoe. It's super thin. There's a ring of padding back here in the heel that kind of locks your ankle and heel in. I think they did a good job keeping this heel counter the way it was on the last version. Let's talk about the midsole. Again, this is the showstopper here. The midsole is a nitrogen-infused DNA Flash midsole. It's lightweight, it's responsive, it's soft, it's cushioned. They added 2 millimeters. I think they did a good job with this midsole. It's super stiff, obviously. It's got a carbon plate, but it's got that responsiveness that you would expect while also being comfortable to run in. They also added a little bit of a change to the shape of the midsole. It's called Rapid Roll Tech. And again, this shoe really likes to roll through that forefoot. When you're running in this shoe, it really feels like you land right behind your big toe and it forces you on to the fronts of your toes. It really tries to get you forward in this shoe, and I gotta say, it's fun to run in. Now, if you're a heel striker, that might take some adjustment. You know, there isn't a lot of heel back here, so if you're landing in the back of your foot more predominantly, this might take some adjustment to get used to, but once you get used to it, I really like how this rolls onto the tips of your toes and really pushes you to go fast. Lastly, The midsole's pretty wide, and I think that's necessary. This shoe feels a little bit unstable when you just put it on and start walking around. I'll talk about that in the dislikes, but it's got a nice wide forefoot here. So once you get to speed, this thing does really start to feel pretty stable. As for the outsole, you can see there's not a ton here in the outsole. They've got 2 millimeters of rubber in some strategically placed locations. I think it does the trick. It's been grippy for me, again, in Colorado, so we don't have a ton of wet conditions to test it out in, but so far it's worked. Dislikes. The mechanical stretch woven upper isn't that flexible. Obviously it's a race shoe, so it's got to keep everything nice and tight, but it really doesn't allow your foot to move around or flex as much as I would have liked. I like an engineered mesh upper, and although I don't have a lot of complaints about this upper, that's one gripe I've got for sure. My only gripes with the midsole is that it feels a little unstable when you first lace it up. When you're just walking around pre-run, it feels a little bit unstable. It's a little squishy. It's a very small gripe because as soon as you get to speed, this thing tends to take off. It tends to stabilize. That carbon plate kicks in and it really does feel balanced and stable. But right off the bat, you might be second guessing if this was the right shoe. One gripe, the lacing system. The laces, they're super lightweight, flat laces. They've got some anti-slip nodes. I think the laces are fine. They just seem a little short. I've got a wide foot. This shoe runs a little narrow on me. And because of that, I think the laces are a little short for my preference. But overall, I think this will work for most people. The laces aren't intrusive at all. Lastly, outsole. I've seen a little bit of wear in my 20 miles I've already run in this shoe. Again, it's a race shoe. It's not gonna have an extended life, but I think that's one small issue is the durability on this thing. Now let's talk about some of the specifics on this shoe, like fit, comfort, weight, and what this shoe really has to offer in those arenas. As far as fit goes, I felt this shoe is a little narrow. It only comes in a D width. It's a unisex sizing. I think in 2020, unisex sizing just doesn't really work. I think that this needs to have women's widths, women's sizes, men's widths, men's sizes. And you know, for me, it's a little narrow. The D, I can normally fit into a D. This one feels narrow for a D. I think it's more like a B, to be honest. You know, I've read a little bit of the feedback from some women runners saying that this is a little wide on them. So it's kind of fallen in between the right fit for women and the right fit for men in my book. If you've got a normal D, this might run a little tight on you. I'm normally a 2E. I can sometimes fit into an engineered mesh D, but that's a gripe I've got. Next is comfort. I think they did a good job again with the midsole upgrade. It is comfortable to wear. It's plenty soft, it's squishy, but it's responsive where you need it to be once you get up to speed. The upper is nice and comfortable, no hot spots, no seams in the wrong places. You know, it's a little tight, but overall this is a pretty comfortable shoe. One thing I did notice over my runs is I'm getting some patellar stress. I'm getting a little bit of stress and a little bit of tension right below my kneecap. And I'm not sure if it's because I'm so far forward in this shoe and I'm not used to that, or if the shoe's just a little stiffer than I'm used to, but it is something I've noticed in these first 20 plus miles or so. Okay, next is weight. This shoe comes in on average 7.6 ounces. Super light. That's fantastic. You know, one of the things though is this actually gained an ounce from the Hyperion 1. So it's gotten a little heavier with some of the upgrades to the Hyperion Elite 2. But I still have to say it's 7.6 ounces, super light. This is designed for race day. I don't think you'll be disappointed with weight by any means. As for always, we talk about drop and stack, 35 millimeter stack in the rear, 8 millimeter drop. I like that they didn't make this more aggressive. It feels aggressive with the rocker. I don't think they needed more drop in this shoe. 35 millimeter stack, obviously a lot. You know, these shoes are going to this. They've got a lot of cushioning for that long distance effort, but overall, nothing else to say about that. 35 mil, 8 mil drop. Durability. We always like to talk about durability too. You know, as a race shoe, I think it's actually going to be pretty durable. You can't expect to get too much out of a race shoe, but 200, 300, 400 miles, I think this will go better than the first version for sure. I think there'll be some durability issues possibly with the outsole if you train in it a little bit too much. But overall, I think they've done a good job. This midsole is going to hold up a lot better than the previous version. Looks are personal, but I love the looks of this thing. I mean, look at it. It's bright neon. The outsole is neon. There's some neon highlights. It's white. I love the way this looks. It looks fast. It feels fast. One complaint, and this is if you're really picky, it comes with a white outsole, and look at that. That white outsole turned black real quick. First run, first mile, it had already turned black. So if you're someone that is nitpicky about how your outsole looks, I don't know anyone that is, That's one complaint. White outsoles don't make a ton of sense. But otherwise, for looks, I think this is a great shoe. It does have this weird heel in the back. I think that that's interesting. You know, heel strikers, don't be afraid of this. I think you can still land on your heel perfectly normal and roll through your forefoot. This isn't gonna detract from you being able to use this shoe, but when it's sitting on the shelf, it looks pretty funky with this missing foam back here in the heel. Price. We always gotta talk about price, obviously. This thing comes in at a pretty hefty price tag, $250. But it comes with a lot of tech. You know, it's got a carbon plate, it's got a great midsole, it's got this racing upper. I think it's an expensive shoe. It's for that dedicated racer. This might not be for everyone. You know, if you want to play today with carbon fiber and the highest tech stuff, you gotta pay. And so this comes with a hefty price tag. Again, though, this shoe isn't for everyone. If you can pony up $250, I think this is a great shoe to try out if you want to try out carbon plated shoe. Pros. As for pros, simple list. It's fast, it's responsive, it's springy, but not too springy. It's got this DNA flash midsole, which I think is great. It's stable at speed. Overall, I think that this is a great shoe if you need a race shoe with a carbon fiber plate. Let's go to the cons. As for cons, unisex sizing, I talked about it. I don't think it fits every runner right. Only one width, D currently. I didn't mention this, but it only comes in one color. This is it. I think those are some cons, and obviously price at $250. I think that's a big barrier for some runners that would like to try this shoe. Overall conclusion, I think it's a great shoe. I think if you want to try a carbon plated shoe, this is a great option. If you want one that's a little more stable, not as springy as some of the other options out there, check out the Hyperion Elite 2. I think it's lightweight, it's responsive, it's fast. Brooks has a great race day shoe here that, you know, if this is the category you're trying to get into, I say give it a try. Overall, you know, other than it being a little narrow, I think it's something that's worth trying out. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like this video, please hit the like button below, hit the bell to subscribe for future updates on different models that we're gonna be testing. Leave your comments below too. Have you tried this shoe? Do you like this shoe? Are you running in a carbon plated shoe? And what do you think of this revolution into this type of footwear? Lastly, if you guys want to check out all the stats, the data, the specifics of the shoe, go to RunRepeat.com. We've got this shoe on there. It lists all the details. You can set price alerts if you need to wait till this comes down off of that $250 price. There's tons of data I didn't talk about. There's tons of specifics I didn't talk about today. That's where all that stuff lives. Check it out at RunRepeat.com. Thanks again for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the review. Let us know what you'd like to see in the future, and have a wonderful day.